I'm Joel Baez, and this is The Process. Now, in this YouTube channel, I put it together because I wanted to be able to document my journey from this point forward all the way up until the point I reached my first $1,000,000. Now, this YouTube channel is not for someone who's looking for a quick fix or wants some instant results. This video and YouTube channel are going to be for those that are builders and love to see what an actual process looks like to where you are building to get to that point. So I'm going to be real, raw, and open about the wins, the losses, and all the decisions that I make moving forward to help me accomplish that. But again, this is based off of my story, my testimony, my decisions that I'm making in order for me to get there. And also my values and my character traits and my vision for myself, right? But before I get started, I do want to start off, since this is a newer channel, just giving you all a quick backstory of myself and sharing my testimony with you guys as well. So let's me start right over here. I was born and raised in Corona, Queens, New York, all the way to about 17 years old. I grew up in a household of about 8, 5 brothers, 1 sister. Mom and dad were both married. And, you know, we grew up in a intermediate, strong family household. I would say my life was pretty good all the way till about the age of 13 years old. And the reason why I say up until that age is because that's when I got introduced to more gang banging and gang affiliation. And that's where my life really took a major turn, right? I got introduced to that lifestyle. I was very passionate about that lifestyle, and it was very intriguing for me at that time, right? So that led me to doing a lot of reckless and dangerous things, and ultimately almost getting me killed several and multiple times throughout my entire life while I was in that phase. Now, while I was involved in that lifestyle, I ended up in detention, a juvenile detention center called Lincoln Hall for about 13 months. I went in when I was roughly about 15, 16 years old, got released when I was 17. And while I was incarcerated, my mom relocated to San Antonio, Texas. So as soon as I got released, within 2 to 3 weeks, I got sent to Texas. Meanwhile, this was a major culture shock for me. It was very difficult for me to adapt because I came from a very, very fast lifestyle. I left all my friends behind. Everything I knew and was a part of was in New York. So when I got to Texas, it was very hard for me to adjust. So instead of adjusting and trying to adapt to the lifestyle, I brought what I knew there to Texas. Meaning I continued to gangbang and continued to do a lot of violent crimes when I was in Texas. And that led me to a charge that I caught here, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and I got sentenced to about 8 years in TDCJ. Within that time, I did about 6.5 years in prison and then made parole after about 1.5 years. And when I made parole, I was back released in San Antonio, Texas, living with my moms at that time. But during my incarceration, obviously there's a lot to touch on during that phase. So I want to try to do my best to sum it up as much as possible. I would say my first 4 years of being incarcerated, there was no improvement in myself, in my lifestyle. I went in there at 19 years old trying to prove something. Also, I went in there very guarded and on survival mode. All right, because that's what I always knew and the lifestyle that I've always lived when I was in New York, when I moved to San Antonio, Texas. So I continued to roll that into being in prison. And of course, in that being incarcerated, it's one of those things where you have to be on edge 24/7 because you never know what can happen when you're incarcerated. Right. So while I was in there, that first 4 years was the hardest for me emotionally, mentally. Eventually, after the first 2 years, I was able to adapt and adjust, but I fell into the lifestyle of prison, meaning I got associated with other gangs in there, and I would say I actually got worse my first year than I was before I went in. And I say that because I was very angry, frustrated, sad, depressed, and I didn't know how else to channel that energy. And what my way of channeling that energy was always through violence. I never had any guidance, any resources to fall onto. And I felt like the only sense of release was being violent. And that led me into a lot of problems in prison. I was in and out of the box. I spent about 2 years in the hole, several different occasions. And after that 4-year mark, it got boring. Meaning, when I say boring, I got very burnt out and tired of that lifestyle. And I felt like, okay, enough's enough. In addition to other things happening, I lost my best friend, my grandfather passed away. So I felt like, okay, what am I doing with my life? And I cannot continue to do this, especially when I had big goals and big visions for myself, right? But again, deep inside, I had this passion for the streets, the loyalty, that bond. Like I did not want to let that go. But I knew that wasn't the life that I wanted to live, especially when I hit my 4-year mark, and that's when that breaking point happened for me. So after the 4 years, that's where the turning point of my life happened. While I was in prison, there's a private facility called Prison Entrepreneurship Program. And it's a private facility that you have to get selected by, and you can't have certain charges. You have to be within a certain time frame of release in order to qualify for this unit. But they select you, meaning they send you an invitation through mail, and then you do like an essay report on pretty much selling yourself on why you're a good candidate for that program, and then in hopes that you get sent to that unit prior to your release. So I was blessed with this opportunity. I've always heard about this program when I first got incarcerated. And one day, once I was finally starting to transition out of being involved in the politics, the gang activities in prison, I finally put all that stuff aside and I started working on myself, reading a lot of books, enrolling in school, and then just really learning about business, right? I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset and spirit, and I knew having a felony on my record, it was going to be very difficult for me to come home and get a job. So I knew I needed to gain skills in order to be able to build the life that I want without having that pressure of not being able to do the things I want because I have a felony on my record. So while I was in there, I took that time to really try to optimize the time that I have left, so I was set up for success whenever I got released. So fast forward, once I got that letter through PEP, I filled out the form, got accepted to it, got shipped to that unit, and honestly, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. During this program, you go through certain phases. One phase is leadership development. They teach you how to develop leadership skills and qualities. But the biggest thing that stood out to me is washing away old habits, right? I grew up cursing, sagging pants, really gang affiliated, violent, and they really had strong systems to wash away those things. And they had a college degree curriculum that helped you excel in business. But the whole goal of the PEP program and focus, I wouldn't say goal, but the whole end point to this program was to have you pitch a business plan to real life executives. And I say real life executives, meaning people that were not incarcerated, that own businesses, that would come and volunteer, and we would have to pitch them our business plan. But during that course of the phase, they would teach us how to build the business plan, and then we would pitch the idea. So within that, my business plan was fitness related, right? All I knew, the only skill set I really had was fitness related, and I decided to run with that. It was either fitness or real estate that I wanted to do, but I was like, well, I'm more experienced in fitness, so I'm going to take that route. And then I pitched that business plan, got released, and that's how I started with my first PT clients was outside of prison. Once I got released, I took that skill and channeled it to being self-employed within my release. Now, granted, that was its own challenge within itself, but when I got released, I was living with my mom, and she blessed me with the opportunity to do personal training in her garage. And my first potential client was actually my mom, and then that helped me build my client base through testimonials, and I ended up going in from PT to group training. And then from there, group training, I ended up doing online coaching, and then that's how it ultimately started growing little by little. But I share this because that's the point that really introduced me to the business world and got me to where I am at now, right? So I started off as PT, worked my way up to group training, then online coaching. And then I met my wife, who was owner of the Camp Transformation Center in Round Rock. And I started working for Round Rock with the intent of owning my own brick and mortar gym. And eventually we became business partners and relocated back to San Antonio because I had initially moved over there to Round Rock to learn the ins and outs of the business before I relocated back to San Antonio. And that is currently where I'm at in my journey right now. I've been owning this camp in San Antonio for about 3 years now. Starting next month will be my 3-year point. But I do have very big visions and goals that I want to accomplish, especially going into 2026. So I wanted to take this as an opportunity to give you guys an overview of where I started, where I'm at now, and where I plan to go moving forward. So in 2026, I have big visions to own real estate. I have big visions to exit out of the camp so it becomes its own asset. And then from there, I want to now start introducing new skill sets for myself, primarily plumbing, so that way I can start building higher leverage skills. So that's where I'm at in my journey. Just wanted to share that with you guys so you know a little bit more about me, who I am, where I started, and where I'm at in my current fitness journey, and what plans I have in order for me to reach that first million. All right, so hopefully you guys are interested in this type of content. And if you want to see the process, see the journey, just make sure to subscribe to this channel so that way I can continue to post more real, raw content for you guys. Again, this is for those that want to continue to build, not looking for any quick fixes, nothing within that nature. But again, I'm going to be sharing the real, the raw, the decision making, the wins, the losses, all throughout my entire journey until I hit that first $1 million. All right. So again, subscribe to my channel. I'm looking forward to having you guys here. Moving forward, I will be discussing fitness, business, emotional control, goal settings, all that stuff within this channel. All right. So stay tuned. Looking forward to seeing you guys. And remember, this is the process. Stay tuned.